Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Bob here. Bob, you've been behind so many incredible companies, hotels.com, getaroom.com, now with the Travel Funders Network. I mean, you've been pretty innovative with this hotel business and with just the travel business for a long time. Early on by making this accessible with the internet, doing it again, and then now, seeing the opportunity with the wholesale side of things and really helping to get more rooms booked. I'm just excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Well, it's great to be with you here, and it's the great part of America. You can really start something from scratch, and if you work hard and really do your due diligence and get the right people, we'll talk more about it. But it really is the land of opportunity.
100%. So just kind of starting from the beginning, Bob, how did your passion for entrepreneurship begin?
Well, I started off in law school, and I graduated. I worked at the big law firm Gibson Dunn in Los Angeles for a couple of years, but I always had the entrepreneurial itch, and on nights and weekends, I would still had kind of a side business. Even in law school, when I went through law school, it helped put me through law school. I had a side business on the airline side, and that helped put me through law school. And once I graduated and started working, I kept that business going just part time, and eventually went into it full time.
Hmm. And why were you just kind of interested in being entrepreneurial? Was it just you like business or you just needed to support yourself?
Well, it was a combination of both. Even as a kid, I started off when I was 5 years old. I figured out that it's pretty hot in Miami where I grew up, so people want a nice cold drink. So I figured out if you go over to the food store, you can buy a small pack for it was about a nickel then, and you can make a huge bowl of fruit punch. So that's what I did, and I had a stand every Sunday morning in front of our house for several hours, and people walk by, and I could charge anywhere from 10 to 25 cents at the time for a nice cold cup of fruit punch, and I did it with lemonade, and that was a great business because you can make a lot of drinks from one of those inexpensive small packets, and so that's how I started out, and then I started rebuilding cars and resell them, and just always loved entrepreneurship. But what really kind of sparked it when I was in law school, uh, the airlines came out with these. It was actually United at the time. They came out with a program where if you took a flight, they gave you a certificate for 50% off another flight, and they just want to encourage you to travel again. Well, what do you think people did with those certificates? So they threw them in the garbage. So I took a bunch out of the garbage. I looked at them and I said, these have to be worth something. So I went to see some people I knew in New York City that had large travel agencies. I said, can you use them? They said, we'd love them. Get me as many as you can. So I got about 40 or 50 of my colleagues in law school that were traveling. I said, listen, when you travel, if you can pick these out of the garbage, I'll pay you, X number of dollars for these. And then, so I literally collected just hundreds upon hundreds of these and sold them to travel agencies. So this is a great business. It was a great side business. It helped put me through law school. And then when I graduated, actually that business grew larger. There were a lot of airlines at the time that needed help. And so we had what we call a bucket shop where we bought kind of bulk seats from the airline. So you'd buy them at a flat rate and they were valid anywhere in the US, and then you'd sell them at a marked up rate. So that turned out to be a great business. And I just sold them just within the network that I had between lawyers and law firms and other business people. And it turned out to be a great business, and it grew and grew. I left practicing law because I got so busy in this business and I was doing better than my legal salary. I decided to go into it full time.
So why was law of interest to you at that point? Was it just you thought it was just kind of good path and you were going to figure out what you were going to do? Like, why go the law path initially?
Well, I also like the legal field. I just it was a great. I love the analysis. I love the debate. I kind of grew up. I went to school and studied Talmud, which was a lot of debate back and forth, and so that kind of led me naturally to law school. So I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I am still a lawyer. I'm still licensed and member of the bar. But initially, I wanted to practice full time, and that's what I did, and I really enjoyed it. I did mostly M&A, which is mergers and acquisitions, and it was fascinating. But it was about 10 to 20% negotiating and 90% drafting and being in the library, figuring things out and doing the research. it wasn't as exciting as being in the business full time. So I decided that my horse going around the track on the business side was going much faster than the legal side. So I decided to go into it full time.
Mhm. So, how did the opportunity, the hotels.com opportunity even start? Like, what were you thinking early on with the internet? Like, what kind of potential did you even see in it?
Well, I always loved to travel. My dad was a big traveler, and he used to he was an importer of tile and marble, and he used to take trips, especially to the Far East, all the time. And he'd come back and tell us these great stories. And so I really got the travel itch then, because I saw and heard so many. I saw him travel and saw so many great stories, and he'd always bring back artifacts from these places and different gifts. And I said, "Wow, this is really fascinating." So I always loved to travel. And after law school, before I started practice, I ended up finding a ticket for about $600 to travel around the world. And I traveled around the world for a couple of months and just loved it. It was great, and just always loved the travel industry. And as I kind of looked around, said, well, where's a big gap? And at first it was really on the airline side, because there was this great opportunity with these kind of bulk seats, and airlines needed help. And it turned out to be a great business. And eventually I sold that business and was looking for something else, and went out on a diving trip with my business partner, Dave Litman. We've been business partners for almost 40 years. We went on a dive trip out in Belize, and we spent about 3 days between diving and crunching papers. And we came up with the hotel industry. And the reason is because there's a lot of hotels, and it's a huge industry. It's $100 billion plus industry. And we just need a little piece of it. It's much bigger now. And it's so competitive. Just in the United States, there's over 50,000 hotels. In a city like Paris, there's several thousand hotels. So it's a very competitive business, and hotels are rarely full. So we saw it as a great opportunity to get into the business. And people had a hard time, number one, finding the best rate, because at the time there was no internet. So you had to call a lot of calls, and your travel agents really didn't want to deal with hotels because it wasn't profitable enough, and a lot of them didn't pay the commission. So most people booked hotels on their own. And let's, another reason is that sold out periods and tight periods. Let's say you want a room during a major game, a major sporting event. You want to find a room during Super Bowl, or find a room for New Year's Eve. Well, you could, of course, today we have the internet, we can find it quickly. But at the time, you could call 50, 60, 70 hotels before you found the room, if you even find one. So part of our business was, number one, was to find consumers better deals. And number two, to find them availability when everything was tight, and make it easy and efficient, even before the internet. Then, of course, when we saw the internet, it was a natural to move this business online.
So, the idea made a lot of sense, but when you saw the internet, was there anybody really even doing a company like this on the internet at that time? Like, were you guys the first ones, or did you do something different that really set you apart?
So we embraced the internet in 2015. So that was really kind of the Stone Age. Sorry, not 2015. It was 1995. So it was 1995. And at the time, the internet was just starting. And it was mainly, people connected with universities, and very few people knew what it was. And a guy named Dave Ray knocked on my door. He was a friend of a friend. And he says, I want to show you something. He said, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And he showed it to me. And it was so slow. You would see one letter coming in at a time. I said, Dave, this is too slow. Nobody's going to use this. He says, it's the greatest thing because you can do business with people all over the world without having to call them, without having a storefront there. So I said, Dave, he says, I'll make you a deal. He says, I'll build the site. Because I told him, Dave, I'm really not going to invest in something that is very speculative and it's just too slow. He says, listen, I'll build the site. I'll take all the risk out. You pay me a 10% commission, and let's see how it goes. And so I had him build the first site in 2015. We put it into service beginning in 2016. It was 5 to 6% of our business without the internet even being interactive. So,
Wow.
We're going back. It was originally 1995. 1996 is when it was the first year we put it into service. And it wasn't until 97 that the internet really became interactive. Well, that was the industrial revolution for us, because now you could have a customer far away. You have a customer in London, Paris, and somewhere in Africa, and they can instantly communicate with you and book a reservation. So that was just an amazing change, and we embraced it. And I went to Dave and I said, "Listen, I want to buy out the site." I bought out the site, and we started building it up. And within a short period, it ended up being most of our business was online. And almost any hotel we went to wanted us to build a site because at the time it was a totally new, incremental source of business. And also, we went to airlines, tourism bureaus, and we started what we call an affiliation program. We built the technology to make a hotel site using someone else's creatives and labels around the site. So we could go to a tourism bureau and we could build them a website for their hotels in their city or their state, whatever it is. And it will cost them nothing. We provide all the hotels. We do 100% of the servicing, but it's their site and they can go out and promote their site. So this was really the beginning of affiliation programs. And we had thousands upon thousands of these. And we were really, early on, we were really the majority of the market. There was almost nobody doing commerce on the internet. Aside from our company when we started, there was Sabre, which is one of the airline information systems. They had a site, but they're connected with American. It was kind of a very clunky site, really didn't work that well. It took a long time for them to improve it. But we invested a lot in technology. We found the best people out there, and we built a really great hotel site. Eventually became Hotels.com. At the time it was called HRN, or Hotel Reservations Network. Terrible name, but we were the only game in town.
So, how did the Hotels.com, that kind of happen where you guys became Hotels.com and, and the marketing behind it? Just can you talk a little bit about how that happened?
Sure. So originally, most of our business was from our affiliation program because we figured why spend money on marketing when everybody else is doing it anyway. So our affiliates were out there promoting their websites, and tens of thousands of them, and we were supplying the whole back end. But we decided at one point, and it was in about 2001, that it's really time to work much more directly with consumers, and we really needed a good name. And we had we had a retreat with our executives, and we tossed around a lot of names. So there, pretty much everything you can think of, like a stay.com, eStay, check-in, check-out, et cetera, et cetera. But we ended up with what we thought was the best name we could possibly acquire was Hotels.com. But you couldn't just acquire Hotels.com because people would type in Hotel.com. So we had to acquire both. Now, it just so happened that almost everybody in the business was an affiliate of ours. So both Hotel and Hotels.com, they were both affiliates kind of working out of the garage. And they were selling decent numbers. And we went to them incognito. We had a third party do it. And we bought them, kind of like Disney did when he was buying up land in Florida. So we did the same thing. And we acquired both URLs, and we decided that we were going to do a big marketing campaign, but we realized, hey, it's really expensive to get on television, but you got to be on television. And it's really expensive to produce commercials. So I decided to produce them myself. So I found a guy down the block that I knew that was kind of a local video guy, and I made a deal with him. And for a small number, he says, listen, I can videotape this for you at a pretty low cost. We'll do it in my home. He says, but the quality of the film costs a lot. I said, well, let's just use an expensive film. He says, it'll have a little tint to it. I said, that's no problem. So our original commercials, and I also decided I'm going to act in them. So I acted in them, I filmed them, I directed them. And because I figured I'll have a good story that the founder of the company is doing his own commercials. So I got on a lot of television shows, especially morning shows, talking about the company, but also that the founders in the commercial. I talked about the commercial. A lot of them aired the commercial. So it was great. It turned out to be a massive campaign. And we went from a company and a brand that was totally unknown in the marketplace. And we did an awareness study before we started running commercials. And based on the awareness study, almost nobody knew of the name Hotels.com. After a couple months of being on television and having, it wasn't just television, it was really complete PR, and we were on radio and other forms of media. But after a couple months, we had almost 90% recognition in the marketplace. It was probably the
Wow.
fastest branding story in history. It was really remarkable. And we decided to buy commercial space. We bought what was called remnant space at the time. So we would buy the space that nobody else was buying. But that was fine with us. Because we ran repetitively, but we did it when it was very cost effective. So it turned out to be an incredible campaign. The company went through the roof, and as you know, it's a big brand today.
Mm-hmm. But what did those domains cost you initially to get?
Well, it's the price is confidential, but I can tell you that the Hotels.com one cost a lot more than the Get a Room one. When we had a 5-year non-compete when we sold and merged. We ended up merging Hotels.com with Expedia, and we had a 5-year non-compete. So when the 5 years were up, we realized there was still a big gap in the marketplace, and people were constantly looking for deals. They weren't finding them because people were complaining there's the same rate everywhere. So we came up with some models to get consumers better deals, but also working with the hotels to kind of maintain their pricing in the public marketplace by working with call centers, membership programs, other ways for consumers to get deals. So we needed a good name for the company. And so we had to retreat again with our new executives at this company. And we had, again, a lot of different names. But the name that stood out the most, that either people liked the most or liked the least, was getaroom.com. And we were worried about the innuendo, so we found 3 religious leaders from different communities, and we asked them what they thought of the name, and they all loved it. So we figured if we've got their blessings, we're okay. So we moved forward with Getaroom, and we ended up buying getaroom.com for really a minimal amount. Again, I can't tell you these amounts because a lot of them are confidential, but it was a trivial amount for getaroom.com. And it ended up, even though we started to brand the name, we decided to mainly focus on the back end at Get a Room, but it turned out to be a great success story as ultimately we ended up merging it with Priceline.
So you've done a couple different mergers, Bob, the Expedia one, the other one you just talked about. What kind of goes into a successful merger?
So, people ask me all the time, are you building companies to sell them? Because you've had some great successes selling companies. And my answer is, that's not what you think about at the beginning. What you think about, I think about now, for example, at TFN, I want to build a great company. And a great company means you fill a real need on all sides. So we fill a need for our hotel partners because they want new incremental distribution, and we provide them distribution they weren't getting before. In this business, we're not dealing with the ultimate consumer. We're all B2B, but we find distribution channels where, again, they don't have this product, and the product will be incremental for them. So we're bringing new value to the marketplace. We're hiring phenomenal people. At the end of the day, companies are all about people. And one thing we've always done is we look for the best people in the marketplace. And that means finding people that are A's. B's don't get you there. It's always a problem when you have an employee that's okay, but not great. We want great employees, and we make them feel that. And typically, for example, at Hotels.com, every employee was an owner of the company. Everyone had equity. Everyone did well when it sold. But again, as we build a company, we think about building a great company, building great infrastructure, building a need in the marketplace. Over time, if you do that, other companies will seek you out. But right now, we're focused, as I have with my business partner, just on building a great company. Same thing we did at Hotels.com, and same thing we did at GetAroom.com.
So the people is super important. Why do you think you and David for years have been working together so well? Like what kind of complements each other from a skill set standpoint?
Well, we became friends in law school, but we became much better friends when we ended up traveling around the world together. And it's been an incredible approximately 40-year business partnership. We don't have a buy-sell agreement together. We don't have a contract. It's all a handshake. But We both trust each other 100%. We value each other's judgment. And one thing is when you run a company and you do it by yourself, it's really a lonely space because there's no one, there's really no one you have to really bounce ideas off of. There's no one really checking you, and that's a problem. With Dave, he's always checking me, and I'm always checking him, and we're always on each other. We always question every decision, and we tear it apart. At the end of the day, we almost always end up at the same number or the same conclusion. But it's great to have a business partner that's really at your level, intellectually at your level in terms of commitment. I know that Dave's fully committed. He's probably the most, other than my wife, the most reliable person in the world that I can go to for anything. And when it comes to the business, when he takes on a task, I don't have to worry about it getting done. I know it's going to get done, number one, and it's going to get done the right way. So it's really great to have that business partnership where we can really share the journey together and share it. It's always a circuitous route. Business is never exactly like you planned in your business plan, and there's always challenges. There's no question. We pivoted many times in our business career, so it's really great to have a business partnership, and now it's going to be several businesses now that we've done together.
So the trust that you guys have is super important, and then that you really find that he's somebody that complements you in many ways too.
Yes. So my focus has always been the sales side of the operation, from the product acquisition to the business development side, and also the financial side. And Dave is always focused on the administrative part, the technology, the HR part, and that's really his area. He's great at it, and so he focuses on his area. I focus on my area, but we are constantly collaborating, bouncing ideas off each other, and again, always checking each other.
That's good. So with the Travel Funders Network, what do you want to accomplish here? Like, Bob, what's kind of your long-term vision for it?
So we saw a gap again in the marketplace, and the gap in the marketplace is that we saw a lot of distribution outlets that have potential for hotels, where a lot of hotels are not being marketed in. And for example, membership type programs, employee membership type programs, tours and travel travel advisors, point redemption, incentive programs. There's a huge marketplace of, I call it behind the fence, because nobody sees the rate. For example, when you buy a travel package, you're buying, say an airline ticket and a hotel room together, or maybe a theater ticket and a hotel room together, and you don't know the price. You only know the combined price. So in that case, hotels are comfortable offering a much better rate because the consumer doesn't see the rate, so they can't complain and try to get the rate down in the marketplace. The rate in the marketplace stays the same at the level the hotels want, but we can market let's say hotels at 60% or 70% occupancy. Well, they need to move those rooms, but they're not moving at the market price. But they also don't want to lower the price, because then they lower it for everyone. But they can lower it in a market where nobody sees the rate, such as a call center or such as a package. So that's what we're focusing on, is finding these gaps in the marketplace, and we're distributing these hotels in this through these channels where they didn't have this business before. So it's all incremental for them. So that's really what we're focused on. How do we know about this? Because we've been in the marketplace so long, so many years, that we're seeing what's getting distributed where and how it's being distributed. And also we're reliable distribution partners for the hotels, because a lot of hotels don't want to distribute in certain channels because they're uncomfortable with it. They had they may have had some negative experiences with it, but they know that, number one, we produce, they know we're reliable, they know that we're very on it. We know that we can bring them new distribution, and we do. And we work really hard to make sure that we serve our hotel partners well and give them great incremental business. And we make sure that we bring great value to our distribution partners. So that's what it's about at the end of the day. Building a great, solid company that really brings new value for all parties that you're dealing with. And we're in the process of expanding it and growing markets. We're now primarily in the US, but we are very close to expanding to other international markets. And again, what's great about the hotel industry is that it's a worldwide business. It's so big. There's so many opportunities. There's hotels, but then you have timeshares, you have B&Bs, you have apartment hotels, et cetera, et cetera. So it's such a huge, robust business, and we see a lot of opportunity to expand. But we're doing it carefully, step by step. We don't want to grow too fast because you can't have quality control. But we're doing it methodically, and we're bringing great new distribution to our hotel partners. And usually what happens is once you do a great job and bring in a whole new market for several hotels, other hotels hear about it. So instead of us, knocking on their doors, they're starting to knock on our doors now, which is a great thing.
That's awesome. So just the last question I have, Bob, what are some of maybe your short-term and long-term goals? Like, what do you aspire to accomplish now at this point in your life?
So I spend a good amount of my time with philanthropy now. So part of starting this business, one is it's fun. I like doing it. It's like building a house from scratch, building a business. It's just so rewarding. Number one. Number two, we took my business partner and I took a lot of the profits we had from our last companies and we put them into foundations. And so those philanthropic foundations, we spent a lot of time. We spent as much time trying to make a profit in our companies as we do trying to find where are we going to donate our funds. But it's a great thing, and it's nice to have a kind of a family bucket of funds that we've put together through our annual income and through our sales of companies to be able to be charitable. And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going a very high percentage of our profits here and hopefully eventually sales here will go into our foundations, which we will distribute to charities. And we do the same level of due diligence with charities as we do in anything else, and make sure that every dollar goes a long way, and make sure that it's being run properly, efficiently, and that it's serving a cause that we believe in. And so that's really our goal here. Number one, we enjoy it, but we're doing it more because we can build up our family foundations.
That's awesome. Well, Bob, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I think there's a lot of good you've done for the world, whether it's through travel and making it seamless and simple for people to actually have good experiences and find where they need to stay. And also from the charity side of things, I know you've been working on funding, different causes that are important to you and they're important overall in the world. And I'm excited to see just your continued success. So thanks for coming on.
No, thank you. It's great being on with you.